Hello there, Jose Rodriguez once again. In this video I'm going to talk about the subject of sizing your images so that they fit onto a final paper size. A lot of people are having trouble comprehending the idea of the images ratio or dimensions or proportions, if you will, and how it relates to the final paper size. And a lot of people seem to think that you're not allowed to crop. Well, guess what? In many situations you will have to crop. For instance, let's just see what the dimensions are of this particular image. And we'll change that to something that we can recognize. Let's just say 10. Well, it is like a 2 to 3, okay? Not quite. As you can see, it's not a perfect 10 to 15, or for instance, 2 to 3. It is actually 3.011. So you see what I'm getting at. It is not a perfect ratio, but it's close enough to 2 to 3. Let's just stick with that for the time being. Okay, so 2 to 3 will fit perfectly onto 4 by 6, and it will fit pretty nicely onto a 13 by 19. Anything else along those lines, you will have to crop. You will have to either crop or have uneven borders. There's no way getting around that. So let's go ahead and set up our printer to do a simple 4 by 6, and you'll see what I mean. So I'm going to go ahead and choose, say for instance, as you can see, I have a ton of printers. I'm going to choose the 1900, or let's do the R2000. Okay, and we won't worry about color management because we're not really going to print. Running a little slow because I'm running screen capture software. So we're going to go ahead and choose our photo size of 4 by 6. Okay, and as you can see, it's cropped a hell of a lot of the image. But we're going to go ahead and scale to fit for this demonstration. And you can see that it fits. It's got a slightly larger or wider top and bottom border compared to these side borders. And that's, remember I showed you that it's not a perfect 2 to 3 ratio. And ladies and gentlemen, you have to live with that at this point. Or you can turn it into a borderless print job and have the print driver enlarge the image so that it goes beyond the paper's edges. That's going to crop the image somewhat. It's going to crop about maybe 5 to 10% of the image, depending on the amount of expansion that you set the driver for. So as you can see, there's no magic trick that you can do to perfectly fill the image. You're going to have to crop somewhat. Now, let's go ahead and choose another paper size. And we're sticking with these original classic photographic paper sizes. Okay, 5 by 7, you can see now the side borders are wider than the upper and lower border. And again, you can choose borderless. You will have to crop the top and the bottom in order to allow the complete 5 by 7 sheet of paper to be printed on. You're going to have an expansion beyond those edges. So you're literally cropping. There's no way to get away from cropping. So let's say, for instance, you want to do an 8 by 10 of this. You can take your crop tool, you can type in 8 by 10, and there you have your 8 by 10 crop. It's not an 8 by 10 inches, it is an 8 by 10 proportional crop, or 4 by 5 if you will. This allows you to move your image beyond that cropping window until you reach a position or composition that you like, and you can hit enter, and there you go. So this is a 4 to 5 proportion image size. This would fit onto an 8 by 10 sheet of paper perfectly. This will not fit onto a 5 by 7 sheet of paper, obviously. So you have to set your image size to whatever size you will attempt to be printing to, and you will have to crop. I mean, there's no way around that if you want to keep a certain proportional size. Let's go ahead and call up our printer and choose 8 by 10 this time. And here we go. And we're going to go ahead and scale to fit media. And this should match the image we have on our Photoshop window here. And you can see there's a border around the image. The driver will insist on a certain width border unless you choose to print borderless. So going back to the original image, remember we had to crop it. This was the original size. We had to crop it to that size or that proportional size. And all we did was chop off some of the top and the bottom border. And sometimes that's necessary. You have to do that. Now, if you really want to do this the easy way, and if you happen to own Lightroom, it's a lot easier in Lightroom. So we'll go ahead and load up Lightroom. And I have a few pictures from recent trip over to the World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C. And I will not bother editing any of these. These are not really great to begin with anyway. But I have here a 13 by 19, and I have it set up with a 1-inch border all the way around. I will undo this zoom to fill button. And you can see that even with my supposed 2:3 plus a few decimals ratio, I do not have even borders on the top and the bottom. I do have 1-inch borders on the right and left, but the bottom borders are just a little bit wider. I have set a cell size to provide me with a 1-inch border, but unless I zoom to fill, I will not be able to achieve that. And once you zoom to fill, basically you are expanding that image within that cell and filling in the empty spaces so that you have a perfect 1-inch border. Now, what's the problem with that? Absolutely nothing. There's nothing wrong with that. The fact that I can shift the image a little bit left and right, OMG, is that a problem? No, it's not. No one will ever know. No one will ever know that you had to do that in order to make that image fit. Say, for instance, I want to print an 8 by 10 of this. So let's go ahead and load up 8 by 10. And we'll go ahead and set a cell size to give us a, say, a 1/4-inch border. Okay, so now we have an 8 by 10 with a 1/4-inch border, and you can see that I can move this quite a bit because it is enlarging that image to make it fit. If I do not want to crop my image, then I have to accept the fact that I'm going to have uneven borders. It's as simple as that. Okay, so you can see the difference. When I zoom into fill, I have beautiful even borders. In fact, I could even choose to do this borderless, but I simply cannot squeeze this image without cropping onto an 8 by 10. I would have to print it onto a paper that is proportionally the same ratio as my image. And so if I want to make a 5 by 7, then size your image to 5 by 7. Will you have to crop it? Probably. If you want to size it to 8 by 10, then crop your image in Photoshop or whatever tool you're using to 8 by 10. Will you have to crop it? Probably. Now, going back to the film days, if you're using 120 film, for instance, and you have 6 by 6 centimeter negatives, those were square. So everybody printed them square? Not really. I printed many a rectangular final print out of my square negatives. Did I compose to print square? Many, many times as I was shooting. But I also composed to print vertical and to print horizontal while still using a square film format. I had an old Mamiya in Century Graphics camera that produced 6 by 9. So that's a 2:3 ratio. Now, did I print square images from that? Oh, sometimes I did. There's no rule to that. You do not have to adhere to the original negative. Is it nice to be able to fill your negative and have a perfect crop while shooting? Of course. Does that happen often? Not really, because what you see on the viewfinder is not really what the sensor is going to provide you. It's always going to provide you a little bit more than what you see on the viewfinder. So yeah, you might have to crop a little bit off the edges of actual image, and that's not a problem at all. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. Let's zoom to fit. Is that horrible? Well, in this case, maybe yeah. But you know what? If I never show you what my original looked like, you would never complain. That's interesting. That's okay. That's a typical visit to DC type picture. But I kind of like that. Did I show you the original? Maybe I didn't. If I had shown you this right off the bat, you might think, oh, that's pretty nice. And I would then tell you, yeah, I actually cropped that on the camera. And you would believe me. So there you go. It's not a problem at all, folks. Size your images and then print them to the correct size. Say, for instance, if I want to use 8 by 10 paper and I want to size it to 5 by 7, simple. Type in 7, type in 5, and there you go. That image now sits inside a 5 by 7. Do you need these white borders? Of course you don't. But I'm just saying that you could print to an 8 by 10 piece of paper and get a full 5 by 7. You have to crop? Yes, you have to crop. Sorry about that. You have to crop. That's the nature of the beast. If you do not crop, then you have a full image representing my actual file, but with uneven borders. And those of you who want even borders will have to use the zoom to fill in order to always have those nice, perfect even borders. But then you will be able to shift the image around and just kind of fine tune it, if you will, until you get the best result. And remember, the idea is for the most impact from your image. When you print it, no one's going to ask you about any of that terminology, any of that technical details about, you know, whether the sensor, you kept the sensor's ratio while you printed it. Nobody cares. It's the final impact. They're going to go, wow, that's a beautiful image. Holy cow, where did you shoot that? That type of thing. If they happen to be a photographer, they will ask you, you know, what kind of camera did you use? Da, 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 and then you can tell them. But the idea of not being able to crop because it's against the law or against your religion, no, it's not necessary. You do whatever you need to do to achieve the result that you need for the most impact in the end. Okay, so I'm sorry I went off on this subject more than or longer than I meant to do so, but it's kind of a pet peeve with me that, you know, whenever I hear people ranting about image ratio and doesn't match your sensor, your camera sensor, oh my gosh, no need to even go there. Just do what you can do to get the final impact at the end. If I have to make an image that's that ratio, that's fine. I will do that. Say for instance there was a car over here I didn't want. I'll crop it this way. Fine, my perfect crop. If I do not need that little thing on the right side on the lower right side of the tree, I will just move it over. What, the monument's right in the middle? Okay, we'll shift it over this way then. And you can do that. This allows you the luxury of shifting your image around a little bit and actually fine-tuning it to the final result that you wish to have. And that's basically it. I will not agonize over any of these concepts. I'm after the final print, and if this is the best print that I can get, and if I want to trim that later, I'll trim it. It's fine to fit a particular frame or a particular mat that I might have, and that'll work. It's fine, folks. Don't worry about all of this talk about sensors and ratios and all of that stuff. It's just needless. Okay. Again, that's my opinion. I know hundreds of you may disagree, but this is how I work. And when I show you prints, if you've seen my show and tell videos, I'm sure you'll agree, and I've gotten many responses from people how well composed they are. Well, guess what, folks? I actually cropped those while I was developing them on Lightroom. I did crop them to unorthodox ratios, but it works in the final print. Okay, if you like this video, and I hope you did, please hit the like button. If you want to share, please do so. Any questions you might have, please ask them on the section below. Don't forget to subscribe. And by the way, thank you so much for everyone that has been subscribing lately. It's really helped me out, and I really appreciate that. So until the next time, happy printing. Bye-bye.